Say it.
Cheese.
No, say the blog thing.
Cheese.
Say welcome to blog number 4.
Welcome to the blog number 4.
Yay! And then say it.
Cheese.
You heard it from the little one. It's time for vlog number 4. Welcome back to Mr. Seabury. We're going to be talking about today. Our vlog is going to be about grading and assessment. I fear it's going to be a lot of word vomit. I was supposed to record some extra material at TXETA, which I went to over the weekend, but I completely forgot to because I was so busy going to different sessions and stuff, and it was so much fun, and I was so busy the entire time. So it's a good thing that I wasn't able to, but also a little bit of a bummer. So I'm sorry that this won't be as interesting as I wanted it to be, but we're going to try anyways. So yeah, like I said, we're going to talk about grading and assessment today, as I've seen in the classroom. That being said, this is another week where I only had one day, a 3 hours of observation, and they're currently setting up for a show. So there isn't a lot of grading and assessment I've seen from my CT, but I have been observing a first-year teacher, who is like co-teaching with my CT. They're like mentor-mentee type stuff. And I've seen a bit of grading and assessment in his classroom. So we'll go over that as well if it's ever applicable in these questions. But we're just going to go down the list and see what happens. Please sit back, strap yourselves in, and enjoy. It'll be a fun ride. I'm a little sleepy today, but that's okay. We're going to get there in the end. So let's go for it. How many assignments/grades does your CT require of their students per week, including daily grades, tests, projects, and/or participation? From what I'm understanding, it's a lot of participation grades, at least for now, from what I've seen from my CT. That being said, the only classes I've seen have been an advanced tech class where it's, as of right now, it's just been prepping for the show, where that's been heavy participation. And the production class, which has been a lot of, so far, just like kind of reviewing the basics in theater and stuff like that. And so there hasn't been much like physical assessment. I would say mostly daily grades and participation. That being said, in the other class that I've observed, I've seen various other things. I've seen one test, which was like a little Canvas quiz. I'm gonna put my leg back down. My bad, y'all. I'm wearing shorts, I swear. But it's mostly a lot of daily grades in terms of like just getting participation grades, making sure kids are engaged, which I think is totally fine for the theater classrooms, depending on your lesson plan. You do want to have that differentiation, as I've learned through the Designs for Instruction. It's important to have those more formal assessments because that looks really, really good, and it can sort of give your classroom more structure. If you only have informal assessments, it's going to be a little bit, it's not my personal, it doesn't make sense to me. Like you need to mix of both. And so I would be really excited to see more formal testing done for my CT's classrooms, but I understand with the current like timing of the semester, it's not possible. I'm certain that eventually I will see something of the sort, which will be very, very fun. How heavily is each assignment weighted? Does your CT utilize a grading scheme with categories and percentages? If so, how much weight does each category carry? I don't actually know this for my CT. I'm pretty sure it's a standard, tests way more. But like I said, I haven't really seen much testing, and I don't know. For my other person that I've been observing, I would say their grading scheme falls definitely more under the classic, especially because they're a first-year teacher. I'm pretty sure that from what I've seen, tests are weighed heavier. I don't know the actual numbers. I wish I could quote you them, but I don't have them, so I'm not going to pretend like I know them. But I believe that tests are worth a good chunk of things, but that because there are more other like daily grades and stuff like that, then they can be weighed less. I'm pretty sure, if I'm understanding it correctly. But that's about as much as I know, and I will be sure to ask about it. So I know it, but yeah, I'm pretty sure it's just standard weighting of grades. So yeah, but probably, no, I guess there would be like a bigger. No, I'm totally lying. I'm pretty sure that there's a big emphasis on participation grades because there are so many of them. But tests are still like, hey, you want to make sure you're doing well on the tests. That's just kind of a standard. So yeah. What strategies does your CT incorporate when grading assignments, such as rubrics, holistic grading, completion grades, and/or peer evaluation? From what I've seen, it's been pretty good about. I'm so sorry. I'm getting so many texts, and I'm going to turn my focus on Do Not Disturb. So sorry, it was so distracting, and I need to lock in on that for a second. Thank you so much for understanding. But anyways, back to the question. As strategies, I would say that my CT does a pretty good job at making instructions very, very clear. Usually it is through doing rubrics, I'm a little confused as to what holistic grading means, but I'm understanding the idea of like very similar to like holistic medicine and stuff like that, where it's like going for the whole instead of a piece. I would say that maybe not as involved because I think it's important to make sure you're being hyper specific when teaching stuff, but keeping in mind that there are other things going on that can affect grades. If I'm understanding that term correctly, I might be wrong, but that's totally okay. But definitely uses rubrics. Also does like verbal explanations pretty consistently. I would say when it comes to there's also a good amount of completion grades just because it's a theater classroom, and whenever we're in the heat of a show and it's just, hey, can you help us out set things? Can you help us set things up or build a set? Then yeah, that's kind of a completion grade. It's just like doing it. And I haven't seen that much peer evaluation, which is kind of a bummer. But I would, or no, we have seen peer evaluation. I'm totally lying. Whenever we did an exercise regarding improv, we had, while it wasn't necessarily like formal graded in the way, we did have peers evaluate each other and talk about what worked in their tableaus and didn't work. And so I think that's a very classic example of peer evaluation, and I'm going to stick with that. Gotcha. Anyways, what opportunities for feedback does your CT provide to students, including verbal, written, or peer responses? I would say that from what I've seen, my CT is always available to talk after and before class, and that's been a pretty consistent thing in every class that I've seen, is that at least 1 to 5 people will come in early and just chat, even if it's not about their grades. They just like come to hang out. But I have seen students go to her for feedback during that moment, which is kind of awesome. Additionally, I believe that there are written responses to some of the journal prompts that I've seen, and that's usually just a completion grade, but I'm pretty sure there are written responses to those, depending. But I know that it can kind of depend on the situation and how much free time that she has, which is totally valid, and I totally understand. What measures are taken when a student is struggling to complete assignments or not turning in assignments at all? Is positive reinforcement utilized when a student is doing well? I would say absolutely. My CT is very, very good about positive reinforcement at any given moment when a student, she's going to call out when a student is like just not trying, and in a sense of like they're like just not putting the effort forward. But she's always very good about reading students whenever they seem to be going through something, and rather than criticizing them, she opens up the floor for conversation, not even in a public setting, just like one-on-one, being like, hey, what's going on? Because she knows her students very, very well, and she trusts them so much. And so it was actually kind of like, I've seen a couple of scenarios where some students have been like, were struggling in the class, and she was able to read them and be like, hey, something's actually going on, let's have a conversation. Whereas other times there have been students who have just sat around doing nothing, and she's been like, hey, we need to get up. And then they immediately are like, yes, I got you. And then they'll do it. Or sometimes they just won't. And then they make no opportunity for conversation. Not they as in my CT, they as in the student. It does not allow for any conversation when my CT does try to go for it. And then at that point, she just is like, I can't help you if you're not going to talk to me. And positive, like I said, positive reinforcement is used. There have been multiple times that a student may have been like struggling or thinking that they're struggling, and then she is always one who finds the silver lining in whatever's going on in a student's life, being like, hey, but you did this thing and you killed that, and that was awesome. And that's my personal way to do positive reinforcement that I really, really like. So that's, I love that. That just is for me. Considering what you have observed with your CT, how will you structure your grading and assessment? What types of assignments will you focus on? And how rigorous and or flexible will you be with your grading style? How will you respond to students when they are struggling to understand material or just not doing well in class? We'll take this sort of in piecemeal, and this will be the last question for the vlog. So thank you for sticking around for this very, very itty bitty vlog. How will I structure my grading and assessment? I hesitate to say that I want everything to be a completion grade, because I think that doing the work is the most important part. And I think that while for some classes having that statistical grade can usually benefit, I think that for theater it's a bit more open-ended. I think it feels weird to me to make everything a number grade that is up to me entirely, when my personal views on art is that like it's entirely subjective. Art, as we know, art is subjective, it's not objective. My opinion isn't going to be the objective right one. It's not like in a math class where you can go, okay, you got this question wrong, I mark off a point. It's like, okay, well, the balance then becomes, how can we compare artistic talent, which is subjective, to work you put in, which is objective? How can I grade that? And so that's something that I'm going to be thinking about a lot. In terms of grading and assessment, I want to focus on probably a bigger emphasis on just doing the work, and having, rather than having clear indicators of how much work did you do, where did you succeed, being like, did you do the work, and having grading indicators for that. And then on top of that, if it comes down to more formal assessments where I need to make a rubric, for example, performances, I will make a rubric for, just so they know what I'm going to be looking for. And I think if, so long as I do that and I set the expectations very clear for what I'm looking for, and I do everything in my power to keep open-minded and, like I said, focus on the work that has been done rather than any sort of talent or subjective success, if that makes sense. And like I already talked about, in terms of assignments, I want to focus a lot on like self-reflection, peer reflection, and group work. This is what I care a lot about. And then obviously performance type formal assessments are pretty solid. And how I respond to students when they're struggling to understand material, I want to give them all the resources that I can, even if it means that I have to do extra work. That's the job. That's what it is to me. Like, obviously, I'm not going to bend over backwards all the time, because then I would overstrain myself and I wouldn't be able to live. But it is my job to help these students understand material. And if they aren't doing well, I'm going to just have a conversation and be like, hey, I'm noticing this, and I want to do everything in my power to help you succeed. And then from there, it's just whether it's up to the student, whether or not they're willing to cooperate, like, not, I don't want to say cooperate, but collaborate with me to find a solution for them. Or if they don't care, then I'm going to go, okay, sorry, I did try, and I can document that and show that because I want to give every student a chance, no matter what. But if a student isn't going to match the vibe, then I can't help them, if that makes sense. And that's sort of my philosophy on how I'm going to approach grading and assessment, which is really, really important, because that's like the evidence of whether or not you're succeeding as a teacher in theory, at least partially. But anyways, that's going to be the end of this vlog. Like I said, I'm very sleepy, so I'm going to finish that. I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up here because I've got a little bit more work to do. The grind never stops for theater education. So that being said, if you enjoyed, please leave a like, comment, subscribe. Talk about how you're feeling about grading and assessment in the classroom if you so feel inclined. And I will catch you guys on the flip side. Peace.